Hey y'all, it's Sharla from the Hartzell Homestead. I am back here with you on the Creative Retreat Kits YouTube channel with this month's release, Deeply Rooted. Now, I showed you my first video of the month was our quick word study card. I like to keep these on my journaling table or desk or wherever you would want to keep them, in a little box or a drawer. I like to sit with these devotional kits more than once. You can get more and more out of them every time you go back. It's just like taking a layer off the study and then, finding out a little more of what's under the surface. And so I have done a simple little entry in my Bible as I sat once with the focus verse. I have done some scripture writing in my calendar or my planner. I showed you more of this last year throughout the year. I did a little bit of a verse a day, and then in the second week this month I took the main verse and wrote it a few times in different translations and took some notes. I'm looking at a little different format for my planner this year, where I still do my gratitude, but I'm adding some prayer and praise little spots and just kind of exploring how that's going to look. But I've really enjoyed the new format already. But as promised, I'm going to do a different project for my reflection questions. I spent the year last year every month putting an entry in my vintage junk journal. And this month, or this month I'm going to start, but this year I'm going to use this mixed media notebook to create something of a creative interactive notebook. The teacher in me just doesn't go away. I love interactive notebooks. I love using them in class, and I learned by placing things in them and interacting with my notebook itself. This one was a notebook that I picked up sometime last year. Several in the community were showing how they were using this type of notebook for organization of their ephemera pieces and different things like that, because you can take the pages in and out. It's mixed media. It's available in a number of different sizes. I chose this size because I liked the format. I thought I could bring in different scrapbook papers and things like that, with it being the width of a normal piece of copy paper. I was really drawn to the fact that I could take the pages in and out, so that I could pull a couple pages out, work on it, and then put them back. And I'm going to create a kind of a fun cover out of it as I go along the way, just as I did last year. But another fun aspect of using these little white pieces of paper, I can run them through my printer. And I was a little intimidated by reflection question number 1, where we were going to draw and label the parts of a plant. I know it's been many, many years since I did that in science class, and I probably wasn't thrilled with my drawing then either. But I thought, hey, this is the time to start trying out what the capabilities of this little notebook is going to be. And I can run it through my printer, y'all. And then I can just have fun adding color and adding to the study and sitting here a little bit more, and then kind of bringing some life to this page and doing like a 2-page spread every time. Thought it would be a fun project to get started on today, so let's see how it turns out. Alrighty, here we go now into fast forward mode, because it is a cold, rainy, snowy day here in Arkansas, and I just decided to sit down and do some creative journaling, see how I like working in this new notebook, and just enjoy some quiet time without even worrying about the clock or how long I was sitting here or even thinking about it. So you see me working here with some stamps that were already on my acrylic block. I created the simplest of entries in my 2-inch margin of my journaling Bible using just simply a painted panel in a coordinating color. I don't even know what it was. It was some little acrylic paint bottle that I had in my stash. And then I just built a title using some mixed stamps. So I decided I wanted to replicate that here in my first creative entry in my interactive notebook. So I'm using the words I am, and then rooted in God's love from our kit set, which is a beautiful mix of like a hand letter and then some little kind of word fetty. And I really like the different shapes. And then I pulled out my Victory Alpha set, which is still in the Creative Retreat Kit shop, and wrote deeply as like a big bold word. kind of an attention getter, a sentiment, but then also my title. Then I just stamped these out using Tim Holtz peeled paint ink color. Now, you may have noticed that while I was stamping out the bold word deeply, there was a gap in there for the second E that's in the word. When you're stamping a word with a duplicate letter, a couple of ways that you can do this. I did a dry fit on my acrylic block for that space of the second E, and then I put it, where it should be in its first position, stamped the entire word without that E, and then just did the second E as like a standalone stamp. You could have easily done, you could have stamped the DE, take off the D, finish out your word on your stamp block, and then scoot it over and continue it on. I felt like this gave me a little more success in keeping it straight and only having to line up one more letter. But then I just did a dry fit on paper of where I wanted all of the remaining words before I loaded them on my block. So that way I knew that they were fitting in this space, because this space happened to be a little bit smaller than when I put this together in my journaling Bible. So I had to kind of work it around a little bit, but I like the way that it turned out. And now that the hard part of sketching out the plant and all of its parts is out of the way, I can just enjoy going through and labeling and then spending some time with my colored pencils and filling all of this in with color. Now, when you look at this, you think, oh, there's so many other ways you could have, finished that out. And yes, I thought about, I would have loved to have been able to do maybe a little watercolor or even acrylic paint watered down, different things like that. But I had used an inkjet printer, so I did not want to introduce any water to this page. So I pulled out my PrismaColor colored pencils, which I've always loved. And really, that's kind of back to the roots, if you will, of my Bible journaling, because my very first journaling Bible was one of the coloring Bibles. And that's what I gifted my mom. When I started, I gave her one, and we used the PrismaColor colored pencils because they were so soft and the color was nice. So I just really enjoyed the time of filling that in. Now, I'm not going to leave all of that footage in here for you to watch because I really took my time. But as I did that, I really reflected on all of the different parts of that plant, probably even a little longer than what question 1 intended for us to do. But I found it fascinating how each of those really do represent a certain point in our Christian walk. Okay, now we labeled the basic parts of the plant: the roots, the stem, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, and the seeds. Now, looking at each one of these individually just for a moment, the roots anchor the plant into the soil to absorb nutrients and water. They feed the growth of the stem and the leaves, which allows for further nutrients and food to be made, right? So a note I wrote in my reflection for question 2 is to be aware of where our roots are planted. I mean, we want to be planted in God's healthy soil so that we can grow and flourish by His spiritual nutrition. If we plant ourselves in unhealthy soil, we will grow spiritually unhealthy and malnourished. Growing in God also produces the flowers and then the fruit. And as Christians, we need to be focused on what we are producing. Our growth, our blooms, our fruit should all reflect that spiritual nutrition that is coming from God. And the seeds contain what is needed to develop into another plant, or in this case, Christians. So we as Christians should be producing seeds that can be planted into those around us, maybe family members, Bible journaling community and friends, Sunday school students, church members, or even strangers. This simple object lesson can really teach us so much about our role in ministry and how important it is that we are fed and spiritually healthy. Now, my right page is simply a map of reflection answers that I just took little arrows and some journaling boxes around that page. I know some of it kind of slid down out of my camera view. I'm using a new mount, and I need to work on that view. I apologize for it being down just a little bit. But I did bring the 2 pages together a little bit using some wonky hearts and some of the word fetty from the kit stickers. Now, I really have enjoyed being with y'all today. I did make notes below, and I also put the little plant printable link below if you want to use something like that to help you. Even if you're not putting it in a notebook, you could just print it out for some notes or use it as a reference. And remember, it's not too late to join us in this month's study. Y'all have a blessed day.